Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Reset Podcast. I am your host, Laura Mignot, CEO of the experience agency D-Flash. Each week, I bring on an interesting game changer, business leader, badass boss lady who is actually changing the game. And this week, we're at South by Southwest. I'm super excited to have a conversation with Addie Conner. She's the president and CEO of 42 Birds and partner at Decoded. And we're going to have a great conversation. We are live outside, so if you actually hear some interesting birds, trains, planes, automobiles, that's totally fine. So, Addie, welcome.
Thanks.
So, on my show, we always ask the same question first because the answers always lead to telling us exactly what people are right now and what they're doing. So, for you, Addie, what was your first job?
So my first job, my sister was a competitive horseback rider. And I was not as good as she was, so I didn't compete. But what I did do is I grew a carrot patch, and I made lemonade. And so I had a little stand, and I sold carrots and lemonade to the other people at the horse events, carrots for the horses and lemonade for the people. And it crushed.
Of course it did. And again, similarly, it sounds to me as everyone else's job. It ends up being that kind of leans to where you now are in your current job. So what do you do now?
So I wear two hats. One is I'm a partner in an ad agency and have been for the last 4 years. However, last year I conceptualized an idea for a brand that I was really, really passionate about called 42 Birds, which uses cork for yoga and wellness products. So offers a more sustainable yoga and wellness product as well as one that performs better. It's grippier, it's antimicrobial. So in November, I actually launched 42 Birds, and now I'm the CEO with my co-founder of that company. And so I run that on a day-to-day basis.
So 2 jobs at the exact same time, no biggie.
No biggie. I find it all very complimentary.
Well, it does sound like when you were younger, selling lemonade and carrots, and now doing 2 jobs. See, always works.
Exactly.
Always works. So how did you get from, having one agency to founding a second company? What was that journey like?
So I'm someone who learns by doing. And earlier in my career, I had become a top 10 advertiser on Google, and then I did the same thing on Facebook and got to grow a really big Facebook agency. And I was feeling kind of left out with Amazon. Once you get to a certain part of your career, you don't do as much tinkering and doing. And I wanted to learn Amazon. So I said, I'm going to create a product and advertise that on Amazon in order to learn, because that's how I learn best. Not just kind of telling people what to do, but getting my hands dirty and doing it myself. So the first product that I conceived was a better massage ball. I'm a skier and a yogi, and I was always rolling on lacrosse balls. And it just didn't feel right, like the rubber on my skin.
It was wrong.
Collected dog hair and stuff like that. And so I discovered cork. My yoga studio, I used cork for floors. We used cork as blocks. And once I did the research, I realized what a magical material it was. So I started from there. And then just fell in love and started creating more products, solving my own yoga problems. So it was really just born out of that sort of hunger and desire to learn the next thing.
Awesome. So tell me about cork, because, as someone who is a casual yoga person where, once every 3 months I show up at a hot yoga class, and it's always good for me, but I'm terrible at it. What's the magic around cork?
So cork, I had to learn myself. There's not a lot of people that know about cork. But basically, cork comes from a special type of oak tree. And the trees last over 300 years on average, and they're actually not allowed to be cut down.
Really?
And so how cork comes to be is once the tree matures to about 25 years of age, you can start harvesting its bark, meaning almost like shearing a sheep. You take the bark off of the tree.
Really?
And you can do this every 9 years. And it's the only tree where the bark grows back, and it's actually good for the tree. So the tree is able to absorb more CO2 from the atmosphere, have drawdown. It's pretty amazing. And the cork forest...
It lets it breathe, basically.
Yeah, and the cork forests are the second highest forest behind the rainforest in terms of biodiversity. So they're home to 42 birds.
I see where this is coming from now.
Endangered Iberian eagle, and then, the largest endangered big cat, the Iberian lynx. So they need to be protected, and as the wine industry moved away from cork, fewer cork trees were then planted, and they were planted by things like eucalyptus trees, whereas as someone who lives in LA, pretty sensitive to then fires can get created, whereas cork trees are anti-flammable up to 1,000 degrees. So that was like, the sustainability is close to my heart, but then there's a performance thing, whereas I'm a hot yogi, and I hated the towel.
It's so gross.
It bunched. It was gross. So then I went even grosser. I bought a mat where the towel was built in, and you were supposed to wash it after every practice. I did not. And so I was like embarrassing. I didn't want to practice sex myself. So cork is naturally grippy. It gets grippier as you sweat, so you don't need the towel. And then it's antimicrobial, anti-static, anti-allergenic. So after 90 minutes of incubation, all the bacteria gets killed. It doesn't smell. I don't even have to clean it. So it's pretty rad. So it kind of...
Oh my gosh. So basically, so wait a minute. You're telling me, so I can do hot yoga, me as casual yogi person,
yes,
and get a cork mat, and then I can sweat until I'm like blue in the face, and this mat will just suck it all up, no smell, and roll up and walk home.
And it's all, yeah, exactly. And it's all natural, biodegradable, recyclable. You feel nature beneath your hands. You feel more grounded. To me, it was like just a much better yoga experience, and it transformed my yoga experience. So then I was just compelled to go beyond this like learning side project and really go out and launch it as a brand.
And so how do you even have time for this? Like, how did this...
Well, luckily, I've spent my entire career building other people's brands. So, from Walmart to American Express to, a Dollar Shave Club, like, we've worked with all of these different brands and seen billions of dollars of Facebook ad spend go through. So for me, that's kind of my bread and butter. It was always like, how do I scale a brand? How do I build conversion funnels? How do I build advertising campaigns that worked? Which is at the core of launching
my brand,
a direct-to-consumer brand. I also, am in the position where I have a very supportive, sort of C-suite around me in the agency that, at Decoded, we saw it as an advantage for our agency as well.
To have your own.
To have our own, because it's a playground for us to learn. No matter how awesome your clients are, and we've got awesome clients, you're still restricted by what they can and cannot do. Whereas now we have, we can take a beginner's mindset on things. We can have sort of unlimited, sort of spectrum to test on. And then we can bring those learnings back to our clients and vice versa. So I've got sort of big data piping through that a little company like 42 Birds can learn from. And then we've got just that like amazing test ground that our clients can sort of piggyback off.
Yeah, so you've got like the ultimate feeding tube, because like you're like, all right, we can try all these really cool ideas.
Yeah.
and then also like, here's some things that work for the smaller brand that could totally work for some of our big brand clients.
Totally. And we're about like, we have this amazing creative team that comes from top-tier creative shops, BBDO, 72 and Sunny. And we're about to go through in the next 2 to 3 months doing a brand identity exercise for 42 Birds, with this incredible talent behind it, which is something that a startup normally doesn't have access to. So I'm sort of finding...
You're setting up for success, I see.
It's an incredibly symbiotic relationship, and already bringing back value to our clients and then bringing value back to the 42 Birds brand.
Fantastic. Now, okay, so back up the story. So how does Addie get to be the owner of 2 agencies?
Well, I got lucky early in my career. I started out in finance, which is just not right for me.
Based on the fact that you have no shoes on, even though it is a kind of muggy day, although the sun is now starting to shine here in Austin, and you're like...
Yeah, it wasn't my vibe.
It wasn't your vibe. It was not your vibe.
I was not their vibe. So I was going to go be a ski bum in Aspen. And my sister said, just meet this friend of mine. She's a lot like you, and she works in this digital marketing thing, and she's crushing it, and she seems to really love what she does. So I sat down at dinner, and I learned about e-commerce and online marketing, and I went home, and I took, like, the Google AdWords test, and it all kind of made intuitive sense to me. I was majored in economics and statistics.
Okay, so there was some fun. So there was some boring stuff there. It wasn't always
I find that very exciting.
Yeah, see?
I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to data. So that was my natural inclination. And started working for an agency. And about a year and a half in, got recruited into this MIT incubator. And
awesome.
It was one of those experiences that just opens up possibilities in your mind. Like anything that I could think of, they could build from an engineering standpoint. And they just sort of called me the idea factory.
Awesome.
And I had this team of like PhD statisticians that, worked for me and could answer any data question I had. I know enough to be dangerous, but I'm certainly not a PhD. And so that was really, really cool. And we had our first, it was a startup that I was working for, and we had our first exit. We were able to sell for over 9 figures to the Washington Post, which was an amazing experience to go through as a 25-year-old, to see that and to see what someone was able to create and sell in that manner. And from there, I was diversifying revenue and ended up getting really big on Facebook, like I said. And underneath the Washington Post, with their support, we started a Facebook ad agency called Social Code, which I, co-founded and ran for 5 years. And then I just had one of those, life moments where I needed to go live on a commune in Mexico for a few months and go to the Amazon and just travel the world for a little while. And I
needed a break.
Yeah, and I came back with a sense of mindfulness that really sort of brought me deeper into yoga, and also, a renewed passion for business. But I really wanted to figure out how to intersect my skill set with my passion and then also with my values. And so that's kind of what I've been seeking over the last few years. And, I think I've finally nailed it.
Awesome. So when you're on that beach in Mexico, what's going through your mind?
Very little. I was trying to be as
zen as
possible.
Yeah.
For an entire year, I didn't tell anybody what I did for work. I wanted to remove that aspect as part of my identity, and
just wanted to be Addie.
Yeah, and meet people in a different way. And it was really, really cool to sort of remove any judgment that was attached to job performance or me evaluating them as a business prospect, and just sort of get to know people for who they were. So it was a really neat experience.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
And so you come back and you're like, okay, now I want to do something that's more aligned with my values. And tell us more about Decoded.
So Decoded was born as a creative agency. So I met Matt when I was at Social Code and he was at MRY, and we were both working on Visa together. And I'd had some weird experiences with sort of creatives and creative strategists in the past, where there's very clear data and we just disagreed because they didn't want to listen to data. And Matt was not only willing to listen to data, he was super intrigued by it. So we just started collaborating on cool campaigns like the Olympics and really doing some sort of forward-thinking stuff. But both of us sort of agreed that we needed to start something new in order to really change the game. And so I had never done much creatively in my life, but understood the value of creative because I had created an ad testing system and knew how much it mattered in terms of a lever for ads. But by no means, should I create the video?
Yeah, no, I get you.
So my task was really to sit down with creatives and understand how they think, and I wanted to dimensionalize the creative space. So when people were trying to bring data to creative, they were kind of just trying to automate it. It was let's just move right to AI and let's automate the whole thing. And then you had the opposite side of people who are no, this is art, and there are certain people that are just better at this than other people, and they have batting averages, and they have emotions and empathy, and we should...
They'll be better at it.
They'll be better at it than, a robot, right? I was I think that there's a middle ground where if we can create in a way that brings back better data, if we can actually use experimental design and proper, A/B testing and variance and have data attached to those things, then we can weaponize humans and teach them to be better than if they're just, never getting any feedback, or, they've got 2 things that they test and they just know that one worked, but they don't know why. So I set out to bring the why into creativity.
Awesome.
And that's really what we did, and what we do at Decoded is work differently than other people now to develop a data feedback loop out of our creatives so that we can learn faster and better than anybody else out there while still producing award-winning, beautiful creative that any big brand would be proud to have. You don't lose the creativity, you actually enhance the creativity. You don't just test one thing, you test lots of things and you open up the possibilities. So it's been really cool. And then about a year and a half ago, we added on sort of my specialty, which is the media division. So we added on Decoded Advanced Media so that we could really serve clients end to end, because that's what we see that people need. Is it shouldn't be just like detached from one another. The media is what's generating the data and needs to come back to the creative in the best possible way.
So because once they get it, it's going to inform the creative and be even more incredible.
Yeah, I think everyone understands that fully integrated is the way to go. But I'll tell you, it's not easy to achieve, and we had to really reinvent the creative process in order to do it.
And did you get pushback from your clients when you were doing that?
Well, we'll only work with believers. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
I love that process. I love that because you know what it is, you hear so many folks, especially when they've got smaller shops and they're trying to serve every single master, and it's like refreshing to hear that you're like, nope, believers, if you don't want this Kool-Aid, then not it.
We talk to the client before we go and pitch, and why do you want us? Like, what's your philosophy? Are you willing to take away the subjective and go towards the objective? Are you willing to follow this? And more people are open to it, but if they're not, it's not worth it for us. Like, we want to work with clients that will do great things.
Well, I can see that you love it because the joy on your face when you explain it, always, like, that's, that to me is always the indicative of like someone just saying it, or no, they believe it with every fiber of their being. So what would you tell the 25-year-old Addie? And wish you knew now that you know now that you when you were 25.
Trust. So trust what you think is right. Don't necessarily defer to what other people think or someone who you think is an expert. Don't worry about it so much. Like, it doesn't have to be such a rush. Like, things will happen and everything kind of unfolds as it should.
There's not a clock ticking every 5 seconds.
Like, chill out a little bit. I think I spent my sort of mid-20s into my early 30s working just insane hours and thinking that was like the key to life, is I was going to build this empire, and that was what brought me joy. And when I left it all and, went to a hippie commune in Mexico, the thing that I took with me that I valued the most was helping people and building other people's careers. It had nothing to do with the size of the company, the revenue of the company, how much money I had made, anything. And so you just learn over time what matters, and you start to adapt to that.
So awesome. And so it's kind of talking about that, stop worrying, and how did you sort of begin to integrate yoga and having a more mindful life as part of your everyday process?
Yeah, so for me, like, the first sort of key into mindfulness was understanding how I achieve flow states. So a flow state scientifically is basically your frontal lobe shutting down. So the thing that is like your inner Woody Allen, all your self-doubt, if that can go away. So different people, it happens for people at different times. For me, I grew up skiing, and that was like sort of my biggest passion in life. And when I ski, my brain completely shuts off. Time slows down, and I'm just able to completely just drop into a zone. So once you know that that's there and you have some tools in order to get there, it's just teaching yourself more and more what does that for you. And for me, yoga accomplishes two things. I'm able to get exercise, which I believe in movement. And then I'm also, able for an hour a day to think about nothing except for my breath and the transition between each pose. And so I became a really important part of my life. Like, for the first 2 years of my career, I didn't ski, and something was wrong.
Right.
And as soon as I started skiing again, everything just started falling into place. So I really value that. Like, I think that taking that time for yourself and for personal care and just to shut your brain off. I hike a ton and just look at the flowers.
Seriously. We know it's true because, like, I find the same thing with me. Like, I'm in New York, and so, of course, I walk everywhere.
Yeah.
And I found that, like, I've come to enjoy, like, my Sunday walks.
Yeah.
And whether it's cold or it's hot as hell, like, I just, like, throw on some workout clothes, and then I'm going to walk for 2 hours. And it's going to be all over parts of Manhattan, through Brooklyn, wherever it sort of takes me. And I'm just in this kind of totally chill, vegged out state. And it's my Sunday. And it resets me so that when I have to like dive into all sorts of crazy madness on Monday morning, I've had that time. So I know I totally understand the vibe of that. And so you integrate yoga into your everyday life. You're running 42 Birds. You're running Decoded. How does Addie have time for Addie?
I just look at it that I've sort of created everything as a multiplier in my life. Like, when I go to yoga class, it's work, you know? At least 5 people in every class come up to me and ask me about my mats.
Oh, of course. So you're always be selling.
Exactly. And, like, you know, just networking, getting to know the different yoga instructors in the community and really talking to them about what we're doing and getting advocacy there is huge. So, yeah, when I go to yoga class, it's totally work. I do conference calls from trails. I hike. I love walking meetings. You know, I think if you're just able to intersect things, I have meetings on the chairlift going skiing. It really, like, I've just made my life work for me. I'm not an office person. I love nature. I look at it as, like, impact versus time. And if I can really make impact, that is way more valuable to me and whoever I'm with. So I feel like in a 15-minute conversation, I can get so much done, and it's just much more hyper-focused than if you put an hour on the calendar.
Well, that's the thing. I know it's interesting. I've like cut my meetings down to 20 minutes. Yeah. Like no longer are they hour-long meetings. They are 20-minute meetings, and I found that it's the best use of everybody's time because we get in, we get out.
Yep.
And it's much more efficient because people see that kind of weird 2 o'clock to 2:20 thing. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah, this will be done in 20 minutes. I know I talk fast, but still. And the there's their value because, one, you're valuing everyone's time, but also you can be hyper-focused about what you're talking about.
Yep.
So cool. And for you guys, so like have you ever had that sort of challenge of a client where they're like, well, no, Addie, you need to fly out to here, blah, 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 blah. Like, what? And I know that you guys only work with believers, but I'm sure you've had some challenges along the way.
You know, I can't think of, like, a situation like that where I've had to, like, come and save the day. You know, we started working with a very large sort of more traditional company in the tech space. Mm-hmm. And I did have to go to their global management summit.
With shoes or without shoes?
I maybe had flip-flops on. So it's like all these executives from this big company, and I just stand up. I think it was 2 hours, and teach them what direct response marketing was, because they wanted to spend millions of dollars for this on this like brand campaign. And I was like, guys, it's like that's not going to move the needle on your business. Like, we have to run this as an acquisition campaign, as a direct response campaign. And they're like, okay, if you can like explain to our global leadership team what you mean by this and get their buy-in, then we'll give you this. And it was like a mega $1 million campaign. Sure enough, good to go. But it took a while, and I have to like slow myself down and like really like talk through things very deliberately, because I can tend to use weird acronyms and go over people's heads, and so it's hard for me to like get there, but I did it.
All right. Yeah, your total mood was like, oh my God.
Yeah, like I got there.
You're like, okay, if you guys want to, I will force myself to do this. Okay.
Yes.
And then for you guys, so what's the thing that you're most excited about? With Decoded and 42 Birds, that kind of coming up, because you're here at South by. Are you speaking on panels? Are you exhibiting? What's happening?
So we did like a yoga/rolling class today. So one of the things that I believe personally is that rolling is going to be a huge part of our future in terms of stretching and recovery, because so rolling is basically myofascial release. So you're breaking down the fascia in your body, that connective tissue that coats everything, right? That gets out of sorts. And so static stretching, you don't really make very many gains. But if you actually roll out your fascia, you're able to release a lot more tension, trigger points, and gain a lot more flexibility. And it's just much better. Most, hardcore athletes, everyone's got those foam rollers all over their house. They're using lacrosse balls or tennis balls. So I look at it, that it's like the same as when I was a kid, so like in the 80s, and everyone had those stationary bikes in their houses that were like
yes. We had
super ugly, right? Like the metal things, And then you had like spin class, or you went to a physical therapist and they had the, sort of spinning bikes.
Right.
Then you had SoulCycle, which made it cool. Mm-hmm. And then you've got Peloton.
Made it cool in your house.
Yeah, which scaled it too. Peloton's got 13 instructors. And it's made them all celebrities. Like, it's a $4 billion company. It's insane.
It's scale.
It's insane. So we see that like progression. We want to do that for rolling. And we're already seeing the yoga community starting to use rolling more. All the gyms have rolling. But, how to work it into classes and just make it more deliberate and then build better products for it. So where was I heading with this? We had a yoga and rolling class today. That was fantastic. Lauren Brown from Wanderlust, a local in Austin, taught the class. She already at the Wanderlust studio does rolling workshops. She was phenomenal. Like,
awesome.
Yeah, like I want her to read me a bedtime story at night. Her voice was like super calming and nice. Like, she was so good. And everyone that we talked to at Wanderlust was like amazing. I think Austin's like a super forward yoga community from what it seems.
I've gone to yoga class here. Like I said, every once in a while you'll catch me in a yoga class. I've actually taken yoga here at South by a couple of years ago, and it was amazing.
Amazing.
I was so hungover, but I was still...
I thought LA was good, and like Austin might be better for yoga. Like, it's nuts here. So we did that. So that was super exciting. We have a collaboration with Outdoor Voices that we're doing in New York this month with their Runners Club. We've got a class in DC with Petra Smeltzer, who's the ex-CEO of Bikram, who's now the CEO of Sweat and Glow, that Michelle Obama may attend.
Wink, wink, what?
That would be amazing. Can't guarantee that, but... And then we've started to do some stuff. We just did a class with Laird Superfood, so Laird Hamilton, the pro surfer, and Gabby Reese. And we're looking forward to collaborating with them more because they just share our values and are such cool people. So we launched in November. We're building the brand.
Building the brand.
We've got a Kickstarter campaign on right now that I should plug, or else I'm going to get slapped. So
go for it.
We've created a full cork roller. So instead of a foam roller, which just seems weird, right? Like, we're supposed to be these woke yogis, and then you're rolling on foam or doing yoga on like PVC mats. So we're trying to eliminate that. And so it's already been fully funded, so you're guaranteed to get the roller. And they're going for like 45% off right now. I think the rollers are only $35 at the moment.
Awesome.
So if you search 42 Space Birds on Kickstarter, you can buy our roller. And then, 42birds.com for any of our other products.
Awesome. And so, you're at South by.
Yeah.
You're doing awesome things with 42 Birds. For your clients who are here at South by Southwest, are you speaking to them about like the future of this and making Facebook advertising more bespoke? Like, what's happening on those sides of the universe too?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we've been really working on is we've got sort of, I'd say, like two categories of clients in our business. We've got sort of like these bigger brands, Fortune 50 kind of brands that are more traditional, but are still like, because of the amount that they're spending, like they're testing and they're building incredible data and they're doing really cool things. But then we've got like some of the smaller e-com, scrappier brands. So different things for the stage that the business is at. Like, I think one of the things with like the scrappier e-com brands that isn't necessarily happening is they're working with, different media and creative agencies, unless they're working with us and they're fully integrated. And maybe they're getting sort of the top of the funnel optimized, the front end, as I would call it, like the ads and the audiences and everything there. But then the back end is broken. So landing pages, conversion funnels. So we actually just created Decoded Commerce. And it's, fueled by a lot of the learnings from 42 Birds, but essentially we've gathered all of capabilities of being able to create amazing landing pages, conversion funnels, because you want to be pairing those with ads and audiences. It's personalization at scale all the way through. And if you're not controlling the entire funnel from the ad that the person sees, creative, to the audience that gets targeted in the bid and the placement for media, and then where they land and how they're able to purchase, you're not realizing sort of the full opportunity of optimization. So we're getting one step deeper with our clients that are like, well, there's a train.
Now that's a serious train.
Yeah, that's a train. It's getting deep too.
It's nearby. It's so nearby.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going beyond just what a traditional creative and media agency does into that user experience angle for those types of clients. And then for our larger clients, we're pushing them with like sort of even more savage just marketing tactic. It's like, just because you're a big, beautiful brand doesn't mean that you can't be on the cutting edge of the types of tactics that smaller startups are using. Like, one isn't mutually exclusive with another. So I think we're trying to bring these big brand capabilities of being able to produce with SAG talent and just like that beautiful, like premium level creative with that like scrappy startup mentality and like really pushing them on that angle.
Oh, you speak my language all day long. It's same with us. It's like, just because you can do a giant launch of a product doesn't mean you have to.
No.
It's like you can be as smart and as savvy as you're a young upstart and make it cool and interesting.
With a $50 million budget, I still want to use it like it was my own and not do stupid things.
Exactly. Don't waste clients' money. It's
basic.
It's so basic. So one last question for you. So, you've been a rock star in business, and we haven't mentioned the fact that, normally we hear, okay, well, this particular woman is this successful person in business just because. But, like, as a woman in business, what's been the biggest challenge that you faced?
The biggest challenge that I face, I guess, so as you can see, I'm in bare feet. And I won't dress up for a meeting.
Don't blame you. What do I do?
I'll wear flip-flops. Like most buildings require like shirt and shoes, but I won't really compromise. And honestly, like sometimes for the first couple minutes of a meeting, I think people think I'm like crazy. And and then they either still think I'm crazy or I break through. And so I just think like there's this perception, like I look young. I'm actually not young. I'm like pretty old now.
Oh, stop.
37.
So?
Yeah. I don't know. It's just getting old.
That's not old.
But like, it wasn't, when I first started my own agency, I was doing like all the pitching myself. And everybody loved what I had to say. And they like thought it was like smart. But getting them to like sign a big check with me was hard. Like I had to get like my business partner of like a 6'4" guy who like wore a suit for them to like,
cut the check?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And you're like, no, this is my stuff. I built this.
Yeah, I mean, he was good too. He added to the pitch.
This was the Addie show.
So yeah, I didn't necessarily, and I don't know I don't blame like it being me being a woman. I think it's like just the fact that I'm like a hippie and like I have sort of like an out there like style and personality, like that could be it. But yeah,
you just radiate like intelligence and fierceness and kick-assness. So how can anyone say no to this? Does it, like,
I don't know. Maybe I just didn't instill confidence. But yeah, like that was probably like my biggest hurdle was figuring out like the right like yin and yang like complement to me to really activate me as a person. Like I'm also like not organized and things like that. Like I'm pretty unconventional. So how to find partners in business that could allow me to be me and allow the business to be successful.
So it's really important to find those partners who, drive with you, but like, support you to help you shine.
And multiply you.
And
like
scale the heck out of everything.
Yeah. Like that's what I need. Like someone who just lets me scale.
Awesome. So, Addie, it has been a hilarious conversation with you. I'm so glad I got a chance to talk to you. The trains loved us so much, as well as the fire engines and the doors opening and closing. But it was such a great conversation. I'm totally checking out 42 Birds. We're going to put all this awesome stuff in the show notes. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome.